Dearest Texas history scholars, I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to be looking at a Texas Revolution map. And the first thing is this spot right here. This is the siege of the Alamo. And the dates on this it's actually a date range, and it's going to be February 23rd to March 6th, and all of that took place in 1836. Now, we have been studying about the Texas Revolution, and you and I both know that the siege of the Alamo was not the first thing that happened. We are going to put these into chronological order, but we're first going to look at the map. And I also want to remind you while we're looking at this map that it has a title, it has a key, it has a compass, and it does not have a scale. We could add one, but for the sake of time, I'm just not gonna. Okay, so the first is the Siege of the Alamo, and then this little guy right here is number 2. That is the location of Washington on the Brazos. Now, this is the location of the Constitutional Convention of 1836, where George Childress chaired the meeting where the Declaration of Independence was written. And that meeting took place on March 2nd, 1836. Hey, for the sake of grammar, I think that we should add some commas here. Cool. Okay, number 3 is this little place right there. That marks a battle. And this is the Battle of San Jacinto. The date on that is going to be April 21st. And then again, we're looking at 1836 here. Okay, the 4th location over here is the Turtle Bayou Resolution. The Turtle Bayou Resolution took place, that was like the first conflict of Texas after the Fredonian Rebellion. The Turtle Bayou Resolution took place in Anahuac. This was like a trading port, and there was a misunderstanding about taxes or duties to be paid for goods that were being shipped into Texas. There was a few people that were arrested, and at the end of the day, both sides apologized and the person responsible was fired. So this took place in July of 1832. So this is like well before 1836. This is an event that shows that there are tensions rising in Texas. The next one, number 5, again, these are not in any kind of chronological order at all. Number 5 marks the Treaties of Velasco. Velasco. Okay, the Treaties of Velasco ended the Texas Revolution, and that was between Santa Anna and Sam Houston. This happens on May 14th of 1836. This location right here is the location of the Battle of Gonzales. And that took place on October 5th, 1831. 5. That's toward the end of 1835. That's when the Mexican government came to pick up their cannon, and the Texans made that come and take it flag. And then they proceeded to fire the cannon into the crowd of Mexican soldiers, thus starting the Texas Revolution. This location right here, which is the most southern location, is where the Goliad Massacre took place, and that is where James Fannin surrendered. Hold on, I can't spell and speak at the same time. Okay, so that's the Goliad Massacre. The Battle of Coletto Creek is where James Fannin saw that he was losing, and so he surrenders thinking that the people will be saved, and then they're not saved. They're lined up and shot at Goliad. And this took place on March 27th. Oh, I just made a mistake. 1836. Hey, that was pretty good. I made it through almost the whole thing without a major mistake. So, that is our Texas Revolutionary map. And I want you to look at that for a second, make sure that you have everything. And now I'm going to switch to the back. Well, this should be the back. I don't know if it actually is. Okay, this is a timeline of the Texas Revolution. I'm going to turn it this way just so that we can write more easily. So, in this timeline, we're covering parts of Unit 4 and parts of Unit 5, just so that you can see the full sequence of events in the Texas Revolution. In 1821, we have Stephen F. Austin. That's actually not the first thing. Okay, hold on. The first thing in 1821 is that Mexico becomes independent. They fight a war and they win their independence. They become independent from Spain. And that happens in 1821. Because remember, Moses Austin had gotten permission from Spain to settle Americans in Texas, but then Spain loses this war, and so Stephen F. Austin asks for permission from Mexico. They say yes, and then that brings us to our next one. Stephen F. Austin brings the old 300. And we studied them, and we made impresario projects, and we know all about impresarios. That was the first impresario grant, first of several. So this opens the door to immigration from America to Texas, bringing Anglo settlers to Texas and enslaved African Americans against their will. This opens the door of immigration. And then in 1824, Mexico creates a new constitution. And that's the Constitution of 1824, of course. And this constitution says that, yes, they're going to keep having immigrants, and everybody in Mexico and Coahuila y Tejas must be Catholic. They must be Mexican citizens. They must be of good moral character. They need to be trying to learn Spanish. So this is like, okay, we're doing it right, and yes, we're going to stick to Catholicism. So then 1824 comes around, and a guy named Mary E. Tehran comes to Texas, and he wants to see how these immigrants are doing. Are they following the rules? How many are really there? So his report, which is also called the Tehran Report, the report finds that Anglo, meaning white, Anglo-Americans outnumber the people that moved to Texas from Mexico. I'm going to call these Mexicans, but we know that they're actually going to become Tejanos. It finds that Anglos outnumber Mexicans 10-1. Now, just to compare this to something modern, that would be as if in the United States we took on all of the Syrian refugees or something like that, and then people from another country outnumbered us 10-1. We would feel very overwhelmed by that. And there would definitely be some kind of conflict there, just as a comparison to what the Tehran Report is finding in Texas. Okay, the next thing that happens is in 1830, and this is a law of April 6th, 1830, obviously. And it just says that, hey, we went a little nuts on this immigration impresario thing, and it officially ends all impresario grants. It ends all the impresario grants, and it says no more Anglo-Americans are allowed to move to Texas. So anybody that's going to be new is not welcome. The people that are already there, we're just stuck with them. We'll just make do, but no more. In July of 1832, we have something called the Turtle Bayou Resolution. We kind of talked about that on the opposite page. The Turtle Bayou Resolution takes place at Anahuac, which is a trading port. And at the end of the day, both sides decide to shake hands and say, whoops, that was a miscommunication, we're sorry. But this is the first major sign that there's gonna be some problems between Anglo settlers and the Mexican government and Mexican policies. But at that time, they were like, oh, well, no big deal. Everything's forgiven. But then tensions continue to rise, leading to the revolution. So, in January of 1834, Stephen F. Austin, takes a trip to Mexico where he plans on voicing his concerns to the Mexican government. He's put off because Santa Anna is busy. Santa Anna's like, yeah, I'll meet with you next week, blah, blah, blah. So Stephen F. Austin starts to get a little bit nervous, and he writes a letter to Texans to form their own state government. Ooh, that was on your quiz last week. He says to form their own state government, then the letter is intercepted by Mexican officials, and he ends up being arrested. So this is Stephen F. Austin's arrest. And he is not released to go back to Texas until July of 1835. That is like a year and a half, not cool. Not cool at all. Next, in October of 1835, on October 5th, we have the Battle of Gonzales. Now, this is the come and take it battle. So I want you to write that just so that you're remembering that the Battle of Gonzales is the one with the come and take it flag and the cannon, but not Cannon Adams, remember? Okay, February 23rd of 1836 is when the siege of the Alamo begins. And then this lasts 13 days. During this siege, there are two super significant events in Texas history. Super, super, super important. February 24th, oh, that's the day after the Mexicans arrive. Travis writes a letter. Travis letter. This is a primary source. So Travis writes a letter asking for reinforcements. He asks for more people, and he addresses his letter to Texans and Americans around the world. He's saying anybody that stands for democracy, they need to come and help us because we know that we're right. We know that democracy should and will always win. And he wasn't right on that specific occasion because the Texans did lose at the Alamo. But in general, we could argue that he was right, that democracy does win. I don't know. That's for you to decide. Okay, so this is the Travis letter from inside the Alamo. Another significant thing is that Travis is saying that it is worth dying to protect democracy. It is worth dying to protect the rights of individuals. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Alamo is such a significant feature, is because it's saying, hey, we're willing to do whatever it takes so that everyone is equal and everyone's voice is heard. Which is sort of ironic because there were slaves at the Alamo. Something to think about. Okay, next major event that happens during the siege of the Alamo is the Declaration is signed. Remember, George Childress wrote this at the Constitutional Convention at Washington on the Brazos. Declaration is signed at, I'm going to try to fit all of this in there, but I don't know if I can. Washington on the... Oh, almost. I almost made it. Okay, Declaration is signed. The next major event, oh, the Alamo falls right there on March 6th. And then on the 27th, there's the Goliad Massacre. The Battle of Coletto Creek would have been a couple days before this. But the Goliad Massacre is like what's really significant about Coletto Creek and James Fannin. This is the major event that comes out of those things. Okay, April 21st is the Battle of San Jacinto. In this battle, Sam Houston defeats Santa Anna and his army, and this should mark the end of the Texas Revolution. It should, except that after this, they're like, okay, let's put it into writing that we won. Let's make it official. It's not official until it's on Facebook. And so Santa Anna and Sam Houston, in their own little way in 1836, are putting it on Facebook that this relationship between Texas and Mexico has ended. They're officially broke up, okay? So we call that a treaty in history, and specifically, this treaty had multiple agreements in it, like that Texas was free and that Mexico no longer owned Texas, and that Texas was an independent country and couldn't be told what to do. All of those are part of why it's called treaties instead of one treaty. So this is the Treaties of Velasco because it took place in a location called Velasco. And these are signed by Santa Anna himself. Okay, there you have it. I hope that you have a lovely day.